Hi, I'm Ashley Cowdrey from Couch Perry Wilkes. We were the M&E consultants on the scheme, so we designed the building services, the heating, ventilation, the passive cooling, the lighting, all the things that make the building a comfortable environment to work in. The main two differences from bringing PassivHaus from domestic to commercial is the increase in occupancy. Firstly, we've got to focus a lot more heavily on passive cooling, because in a domestic building you just haven't got the occupation density that you have in a commercial building. And secondly, you've got to focus heavily on minimising the IT requirements, because again, you've not got anything like the PC requirements and the printers and everything that needs to run for the IT strategy. In a commercial building, you've got those elements. In terms of passive cooling, we had to put a big push on thermal mass. So we've got the Duracell block system, which is a highly insulated system, but that also introduces a significant element of thermal mass. And increasing the thermal mass to the nth degree, we've put the underground earth tube system in the car park, which draws air at 25 degrees in a very hot day and cools it passively to introduce the air to the office at something like 17 or 18 degrees. So that makes a huge difference to the internal environment. We also had a big focus on what we call facade engineering. Because we've got a huge south-facing elevation, that's great for passive heating, because the low-level sun in the winter needs to be allowed into the building to passively heat the space. But it's not so good from a summer cooling point of view. So we've designed an external blind system called a Leverlux system, and that simply drops and angles itself to reflect the peak summer sun during the peak summer months, to make sure that the occupants are nice and cool and the building isn't being driven to overheating by solar gains. The beauty of passive cooling is that it's a fraction of the cost of air conditioning. All we do to combat overheating with a passively cooled system is simply start to open the windows if the occupants get hot. That introduces a high amount of air movement, so the occupants passively feel cooler. And we increase the amount of air that we're drawing through the earth tube system, and again that increases the air movement and increases the amount of passively cooled air being introduced to the space. Well, if we compare a PassivHaus building to a typical building built to today's UK standards, start by looking at the heating alone. The heating's around about a fifth on a PassivHaus building, but the big saving is on the total primary energy, which is down at around about 30%. So a PassivHaus building will burn something like 30% less fuel than a typical building built to today's UK building regulation standards. So that in itself provides a great framework for energy efficiency. Now, there's no funny business, there's no renewables in that design. It's quite simply energy efficiency built into the fabric and the structure of the building. So that gives you a good platform. If your starting point is a third less than a typical building, then to offset that with renewables is very achievable in a cost-effective way.